Well, welcome to part 2 of Straight Shooting News. The awakening begins in 2023. Episode 3, part 2, named Obama's Classified Documents. Promises made, but can they be kept? Can the House of Representatives keep its promises to the country or even to itself? So we're going to try to clear up first in the segment of what actually took place and why with the Speaker's position last week. As many people still don't know, the Conor Wabaka's on TV was sitting there, including the host on the clip that you're going to see, about how all these people were obstructing everything because they were stopping progress from being made. And now you're going to hear why. We explained it to you last week and tried to show you what it was all about, but now you're going to hear it right from a member of Congress, Chip Roy. He explains it. And this should make you even more concerned if our first segment didn't give you a little, like, what do you say, a little shock into reality and start you on your awakening. Roll it.
Congressman Chip Roy from Texas. He's a member of the Judiciary Committee, member of the Freedom Caucus, and was really one of the most important members last week as he tried to negotiate a deal and succeeded in bringing a number of parties together and getting these rules straight. Now, I want to ask you a question, Chip. Okay, now you pretty much have the rules you want, 90% perhaps, is that right?
Well, we got a lot of good things in this deal, and the rules that we got, and they go back for a little bit, this is all predicated on fixing this town, right? And you and I have been fighting this beast for a long time. And to get your arms around it, you got to actually have power in the hands of the rank and file members of the body. So the idea going way back a number of months ago was for us to actually try to fix the House so that I'd have the power to do what I haven't been able to do since I've been in Washington, which is offer amendments, be able to have, a say in the debate. And so we were able to get significant changes, single subject bills, 72 hours to read the bills that will be enforced, the ability to offer amendments on the floor in open debate to cut spending. These are significant changes to the House. And then importantly, we were able to get agreements that we were going to limit spending to 22 levels, FY 22 levels, as part of this overall agreement with the Speaker, now the Speaker. And these are fundamental changes that are going to allow us to change things. And importantly, on the rules, make sure that there are conservatives on the Rules Committee so that we can actually affect what goes to the floor. Now, the Rules Committee is nerd speak, but what it really is the committee that is what funnels the stuff to the floor of the House of Representatives. We're now going to have conservative representation on that committee. And now we can help control that we get good bills to the floor and advance conservative bills for the American people. It's critical. These reforms are really significant, Mark.
Here's my question, though. In the last few days, particularly the last day, when you still had a few holdouts, were one of these rules at stake? Or did you pretty much have it all together already in your deal, but we still had people holding out? Because that's my sense of it.
The truth is, a lot of this stuff was not actually ironed out until the last 48 hours, basically, for example, and the accountability of the Speaker. It took all of this time until last Saturday on New Year's Eve for Speaker McCarthy now to agree to the vacate the chair of 5 days, and then this week we were able to move that to the 1 day. Now, what does that mean? The one person vacate. The one person vacate is what was always in Jefferson's rules. And it took us all the way up till this week to get that done. That matters so that we have accountability on the Speaker. Once you've got that, now we can all start getting down to the table and know that we've got our power as representatives to be able to get the job done. We got that done, but importantly, we had to ink the deal on making sure we had conservative representation. That wasn't in there. We We had to ink the deal on the church committee, which Jamie Comer just talked about. That wasn't in there. That wasn't locked down as part of the agreement. We had to describe what it would be, that it would have the jurisdiction to go after the vast array of all of the agencies. That wasn't in there. We had to ensure that we were going to have the specifics with respect to the spending restrictions that would limit spending to FY22 levels and not allow for a debt limit increase without accomplishing that objective. That wasn't in there. That took all of this time to get to that agreement. And importantly, we would never been able to do that if some of us hadn't held out, including some of the ones that were, a little more stubborn and open about it. It takes, breaking some eggs to get things in this town. But let me just say that those individuals, even though we reached a different conclusion, they had doubts about Kevin McCarthy based on a long track record. And we had to reach an agreement. And they worked in good faith through this entire time to try to force change. They didn't get to the same conclusion on voting for Kevin, but we got to the deal because we all stuck together. At the beginning of this was about trying to fight now to get us on the same page with the rules that will enable us to fight for the American people. Now, to answer your question, sorry. No, we're not going to be able to get all of these things done in a world in which we're in a barely thin majority in the House and Chuck Schumer runs the Senate, and that Joe Biden in the White House is unable to actually put two sentences together. And so what are we going to do? We're going to have oversight. Jamie Comer's going to do a good job. Jim Jordan. We're now going to have the power, though, with this select committee. We're going to have broad power to be able to go after this weaponization of government. And we can set the terms for how we now spend money. We can set the terms for now how we control the power of the purse to force change. And even if the Senate rejects it and we end up with a CR, we've changed the culture of the House of Representatives, and we're able to stop the House cutting bad deals, which often has happened in the past. I don't want Mitch McConnell to make the House bend to his will. I want us to make the Senate bend to our will, even if we have to get to a CR by January of 25 when we have a Republican president. I want us to be able to fight together to stop Washington.
I don't think any of your rules have anything to do with impeachment. Now, that said, we have the head of the Department of Homeland Security who is daily violating the federal Constitution and federal immigration laws. And this is affecting the national security, the health and well-being of our society. Why is it so such an affront to raise impeachment when it comes to somebody like this?
Well, Mark, and we know that the secretary has been lying. We know that the secretary's lied to Congress. He's lied about the Border Patrol agents allegedly whipping Haitian migrants. And he should be impeached for failing to carry out his constitutional duty. He's blatantly disregarding it. The problem we'll have is that there's a block of Republicans who are going to be a little hesitant to say that it's a high crime and misdemeanor. Now, I think that's wrong, right? I mean, I think that at the point when you've got an individual ignoring their constitutional duty, ignoring their oath, breaching the public trust, that is an impeachable offense. I've made the case for that. I've been doing it for about a year. I literally wrote a memo making the case. I hope that we'll go through that and investigate it. I know that the Speaker wants to, and I know that Jim Jordan wants to go look at that. But we've got a few Republicans who are hesitant. So we're going to have to make the case. I think we can get him across the line, but it's going to take a little bit of work. But it is clear that he's disregarded his oath, that he should be removed from office.
You're going to be on the Judiciary Committee. That's going to be a crucial committee under Jim Jordan. The Biden crime family needs to be examined. The National Archives, if it is cherry-picking presidents and so forth in terms of documents. I personally would want to have all their communications over the last several years to see if they've been totally politicized. You have an FBI that's targeting parents and targeting pro-lifers. I mean, you have your plate full over there. Do you think you're going to be able to dig in hard?
I believe so, and I believe critical to that is having Jim Jordan at the head of the Judiciary Committee, Jamie Comer, who you just had on over at Oversight, and to dive into these, but having that select subcommittee, the church-style committee that we were able to get, frankly, by these negotiations, and to expand the power of the budget.
Was somebody opposed to your church-style committee?
Early on, there was no interest in making that kind of a specific committee to go after that. And they were going to leave it across multiple standing committees, which wouldn't be as good. Now it is, we all agree. Jim agrees, Jamie, the speaker, we've gotten it there. It took a little work. So now there's a lot of interest in doing that. And one final point. We can have all the hearings we want, but you and I both know if we don't use the power of the purse or some way to stop the bureaucrats from doing this crap, the $400 million to a new FBI headquarters, we should stop that. So we got to have the hearings. And as Jamie said, come September 30th, we got to defund this garbage since Mitch McConnell took the tools away from us. And those 18 Republicans, they need to feel the pain. And the House needs to do their job to force it down the Senate's throat and stand up for the American people. That's what this fight's been about over the last couple of months. And I'm proud to have done it. Now we got to do the work, Mark.
Let me ask you a question. Just to start, your relationship with Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
Okay. How is that? Chip Roy and the holdouts wanted to change the House to work for the people the way it was designed to in the Constitution. Nothing was in place until these people held out. It was worth waiting the week. If you listen to all the points he hit on. Now, think about it. When you start to see what we're seeing unfold now, can you see how those fundamental changes were necessary? You know, they had to hold Speaker McCarthy's feet to the fire to make sure, because of his past record. And it sounds like a bipartisan factor because Chip Roy said it right there. Those 18 Republicans that took away the power of the purse that they would have had immediately when they started in Congress and the House, by okaying a budget, an omnibus budget, they need to feel the pain. So they're not going after, going after Democrats for the people's sake. They're going after their own, the neocons, the rhinos, the ones that don't really represent the, well, as they say, the conservative Republican Party, but I think it goes much further than that. I think we're talking about basic constitutionalists, and these people are nothing like that. They are the problem in D.C., and he's pointed that right out to you. So the church committee, now we've done several segments on the church committee. We've put together some bullseyes for you, Waking in Bullseyes from Straight Shoot News. You can find them up on Rumble. I think we have one on YouTube too. And they turn around and they're talking about it. Senator Church from 1970s, talking about the power that they've developed. And if a tyrant got in control of these agencies, we'd be in the abyss. That's what they're talking about. These people knew what they were doing. So they forced a change. And you got to go back to the Constitution again, because in the Constitution, and this is a point that was made over laws and everything else. And that gentleman, Ron Paul, said we still have the Constitution if we want to use it. In our first segment at the beginning, the House is given and was given the power of the purse in the Constitution to control the funding. For those of you who don't quite understand, the House is made up of hundreds of members from each district in the country. So they're actually closely representing the people. There's 2 senators elected from each state, so it's a broader based support or broader based power structure. So our founders were wise. They put the design into the hands of the House that represent sections of people all across the country to force accountability. And then we start talking here about, they bring out the subject of impeachment. Mayorkas lying to Congress. We all know the border's not secure. I don't know where you live, but in most places, even where I am, you can tell there's just people flowing in that just all came in. We don't know who they are. I have no idea who these people are. So he calls it high crimes and misdemeanors for impeachment. That's the definition, again, of treason. So where are we going here? What's going on? Let's listen to what James Coleman has to say, and then Speaker McCarthy in our next segment. Go ahead, roll that.
Now we got to do the work, Mark.
Let me ask you a question. Just to start, your relationship with Speaker Kevin McCarthy. You're the incoming chairman of this committee. Has he put any limits on you? Has he told you, look, Jim, this is what I really want you to do? Or has he said, run with it?
He said run with it. I think he has confidence in me. He knows that I'm serious about wasteful spending. I'm serious about runaway bureaucracies. I'm serious about unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats. And I think he's given me the keys and given me full authority for subpoena power. And we're ready to go. We're just going to get committee staffed up, and we're going to get our roster filled, and we're going to hit the ground running.
The subpoena power you mentioned, how does that work? Apparently different committees are different, right, and different Congresses are different. How will that work with your committee?
It's special. So the chairman of the House Oversight Committee has subpoena power. Now, the only limit to my subpoena power, I have to get the general counsel in the Speaker's office to sign off on that. And that's where the problems have been in the past. If you listen to someone like Jason Chaffetz say how he was blocked from time to time, and I think Darrell Issa, when Boehner was Speaker, they were blocked from time to time from the Speaker's office. But the reason the Speaker's general counsel signs on is if it goes to court, then they're the actual entity that represents the Oversight Committee in court, and that's where it's paid for out of the Republican majority's legal fund and things like that. So I expect to be in court a lot because, unfortunately, I don't have as much confidence as I wish I had with respect to some of the people that we're going to be subpoenaing actually complying with those subpoenas right away.
Well, what are the top priorities of your committee, or do you have just a group of things you're going after simultaneously?
Well, we're going to be doing a lot. I want to be a substantive committee. There has been no oversight over the past 2 years. You think about all the money that's been spent in the name of COVID, all the stimulus funds, all the unemployment insurance extensions, all the PPP loans, the infrastructure bill. There's not been a single hearing in the House of Representatives that would identify any wasteful spending. You just assume that everything's going well, and we know that's not true. We know there's been hundreds of millions of dollars that went to fraud in the unemployment systems in all 50 states. We know that there were PPP loans that were obtained through phony accounts and through foreign accounts, even worse. We know that there are a lot of things that have been spent in the name of education that had nothing to do with the COVID funds that they were intended to be used for. So we're 2 years behind because the Democrats didn't hold any hearings with respect to spending. I'm concerned about all the trillions of dollars that were wasted in COVID. We're concerned about the southern border. We've been meeting and we've had whistleblowers with the Border Patrol that have told us different things that Mayorkas has told them with respect to essentially standing down at the border. Mayorkas knows very well the problems that this administration's created on the southern border, but yet they continue to allow for what is essentially an open border policy. We're going to be dealing with a lot of the border issues. We're also concerned from an investigative standpoint. We're very concerned about the Biden family influence peddling. We believe that this administration could possibly be compromised because of the millions of dollars that Hunter Biden and Jim Biden have received. And according to information on the laptop that we possess, the hard drive with the laptop, Hunter Biden was paying for a lot of expenses for his father. So there's a lot of investigative responsibility that we're going to be undergoing. We've already sent letters out to people. We want to bring people in to start doing transcribed interviews next week. So we're going to hit the ground running.
Now, it's obvious they're going to play rope-a-dope with you. The White House has already said, well, we're not responding to that other stuff you sent us. You were in the minority, so start over again. So they're going to try and drag this out through the 2-year term of the Republicans in the House of Representatives. How are you going to fight that? I guess aggressively in court, right?
Aggressively in court. That's plan B. Plan A was to withhold their funding. Unfortunately, the senators did us no favors by passing that omnibus spending bill. We had hoped that they would pass a continuing resolution, punt until January, let me bring some of these bureaucrats in, where we've had so many questions with respect to waste, fraud, and abuse of tax dollars in every cabinet. But unfortunately, the Senate, for whatever reason, decided to fully fund every agency for the next 9 months. So that was one of the tools in the toolbox we had to try to withhold funding. But we're going to enact the Holman rule. We're going to do a lot of different things in the House that'll hopefully give us more tools to be able to identify specific agencies, specific bureaucrats to withhold their funding in the future. But we're going to use subpoena power. And it's a shame to have to use subpoena power to request government spending. We're working closely with the inspectors generals. We've identified several inspectors generals that are very effective, that are very concerned about wasteful spending in their cabinets and in their agencies. So we've already been meeting with them. So we're ready to start having hearings and bring people in to be interviewed and then further ahead to be deposed. Our staffs coordinate together, the judiciary staff and oversight staff. We have a great working relationship. A lot of what we're doing with respect to the Biden family influence peddling investigation is also overlapping with what Jim Jordan and the Judiciary Committee are doing with the FBI and DOJ investigation. So one of the first groups of people that we hope to have in front of the Oversight Committee to be interviewed will be those 3 Twitter employees that were implicated by Elon Musk in the first Twitter dump, where they, provided evidence that the FBI was behind Twitter censoring the laptop story. And that's concerning because the FBI had the laptop and they knew darn well that that laptop was legitimate and that it had some very damaging evidence for Joe Biden on there. So we want to know exactly what went on with that. We'll be working closely with Jim Jordan's Judiciary Committee on that because they're the lead agency with respect to the whole weaponization of the FBI. But again, this deals with the Biden family influence peddling investigation. So there's not going to be any problem with Jim Jordan and I. We work together very closely, and I'm very happy that he's also on the Oversight Committee.
Who's going to be looking at this January 6th committee and all the information they gathered and the fact that despite all the information they gathered nothing on Nancy Pelosi and them turning down National Guard that was offered to them by President Trump and all the rest? I mean, the story about securing the building has never really been investigated.
That's a great question. I get asked that a lot. So in the rules package that we'll be voting on next week, there's a new select committee that will be under the Judiciary Committee that will be focused on a lot of the DOJ politicization and weaponization, as well as focused on some of the things that the January 6th committee failed to investigate. And I believe that a lot of things pertaining to the January 6th committee that many in our conference feel were not properly investigated will be investigated by that select committee, and that select committee will be led by Jim Jordan. So Jordan and this new select committee is going to be focused on a lot of things that a lot of Republicans have been very frustrated with over the past year and a half, watching that January 6th committee operate the way that they did.
Have you basically already sent out a whole bunch of what I'll call, as a lawyer, protective orders and so forth to these various agencies and departments? So if they've destroyed things in defiance of those protective orders, you can actually hold them in contempt of Congress?
Yes, we've sent out numerous preservation of document requests, and every agency in the federal government that needs to be investigated has received multiple request for the preservation of documents. So we knew they would play the minority card on us, as they did a few weeks ago, and said, well, you were in the minority. Minority doesn't matter. And that's totally incorrect. But we knew they would play that card. But at the very least, we covered our tracks and said, you must preserve these documents. You must preserve the correspondence between this bureaucrat and that bureaucrat, to make sure that once we did get the gavel and once I did get subpoena power, we would be able to eventually get that information.
Let me ask.
This special counsel that was appointed to look.
All right. That was quite a bit in that piece, too. Let's unfold some of that for you. So they had a holdout because they wanted power, like Chip Roy said. They needed the power that they were assigned to have under the U.S. Constitution. So now, he says, Speaker McCarthy has complete confidence in him. He's going to let him run with it. They won't hold back funding, because when they issue subpoenas, they need finances to take it to court. Before, they used to have to ask permission of general counsel. And as he stated, in former Congresses, the speakers blocked funding. These rhinos were blocking funding for investigations they wanted to have. Now, you got to ask yourself why. And this is why we say the political pendulum and our series of the pendulum swings from right to left, left to right in a hypnotic fashion until all your liberties are eroded away. And he just made that point for you. So there's been no oversight to all the spending of finances. They know of fraud. They've seen fraud, even fraud from foreign entities. We're digging into all this funding. Where did all this money for the Rona go? I think a lot of it isn't even spent. I'd like to know where it went in my own community. We're still trying to find out where. So imagine the amount of money we're talking about in Washington, D.C. You know, they're going to investigate the border. Chip Roy said the same thing. And we did so much more on that. We didn't have enough time to put it in there. But there's a lot of people calling for this border, and they want to know what's going on with Mayorkas. He lied to Congress. They want to know what's going on with the Biden family cabal. Hunter, Joe's brother Jim. It's gotten to the point where it's so outrageous, it's almost unbelievable. And that's the point they do. They try to get it to the point where they become so outrageous and blatant, they rub it in your face, that you can't even believe it's happening to you. But you better start believing it, because there's so much at stake here. Will the Dems drag this thing out? Good point. They managed to drag out the Trump presidency for 4 years. Impeachment, Russia. And there was no connections at all. It was all set up by Obama and Clinton, so that the people's choice, President Trump, could not get all the things he was trying to get done for the American people. He got quite a bit done, because he made a better life for people of all genders, races. Everybody was doing good. They were working. Things were going in a positive direction until China attacked us. And now you got to wonder, who helped China attack us? And why did they declare war in 2019? We explained to you. They were caught. They were caught in the universities. They were caught spying. They were caught teaching our kids different things of how communism is the way to go. Whoa, wrong country. So when you hear your kids talking about these socialist things and these green things, you got to actually ask yourself if you need to sit down and have a long conversation with them. If they don't want to hear it, all you do is shut off their funding to go to school, their gas cards, their car payments or their phone payments, all these things you make it from. Because like Ron Paul said, it's going to be up to we the people. We still have this, but we've got to use it. And he did mention education and treason. Now, let's take another look at some other things here. He mentioned again how the Senate sold them out. Why would the U.S. Senate, supposedly Republicans that call themselves conservatives, take away that power to investigate and prolong? Because maybe some of them, and I'll tell you right now, I could probably discover it if you give me the right crew to investigate, that they're involved with this China thing, which should be even more concerning to us. Okay? Twitter exposed quite a bit. I mean, we'll have more on that later. We're going to have Matt Taibbi's interview in part 3 for you that he did with Maria Bartiromo. Well, he quite explains it quite well. We'll let him do the explaining there. The January 6th Select Committee, they failed to investigate what Pelosi was doing in there. So is there a cover-up? Oh, you better believe there's a cover-up. It's too obvious. You have to be living under a rock and hiding from reality not to understand what's going on here. And those people that are in prison, that violates the Constitution anyways. The other thing that was most interesting, and you really should want to take a look into, is how they were smart enough to send out preservation orders, preservation of document orders to all the agencies they want to investigate. I mean, that comes down to, you're talking about getting these people up in front of Congress, holding their feet to the fire. And if they refuse or if they lie, you're talking about breach of Congress. You're talking about lying to Congress, which is persecutable. I don't know who's going to persecute them with this DOJ and FBI that we have, because you already know they're seriously compromised. Well, why would they do that is the question. Could it be that we have people in the upper levels of our intelligence agencies that are also somehow involved or influenced by China? I explained to you about the DOJ and the gentleman investigating Trump, how he's got communist Chinese parents who escaped from there for a better life, and how the communist Chinese have police stations in this country to intimidate the people that are here. And that's being allowed too by the FBI and DOJ. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. Then we have the January 6th Select Committee. Whoa, you keep going back to that. Well, let's hear a little bit more on that in our next segment. Roll that.
This special counsel that was appointed to look at Joe Biden is somebody we're very familiar with. He is a Russia hoaxer himself. And I think the Republicans better check in. He has a lot of explaining to do because he was involved in the letter that was from the FBI to the public that said that we were going to endanger national security if we released the memo at the time.
Feels like the Democrats have been just railroading over the Republicans now for several years.
We want the people to be a part of their government, to be actually see that it's working. The reason why I look to releasing those tapes, I've watched the politicization of what transpired there, that Nancy Pelosi wouldn't release her own text, but would pick and choose who could be on that committee. I watched what the report said, things that were not true. So the best way to handle this, I think, is exactly the way Elon Musk. Just put all the information out there and let people see what is truth and what is not. So the best way to do that is you release the tape. People can know for themselves instead of picking and choosing what views they want people to see.
Well, what are we going to learn? Are we going to learn that Nancy Pelosi basically allowed open air and people to come in with the Capitol Police not enforcing rules?
I don't know. I haven't seen the tapes. I just think they should be released. The one thing I did know when Nancy Pelosi picked this committee, she picked a chairman that actually objected to President Bush being in as president, but the chairman actually said, we can look at everything except Nancy Pelosi. We could not know what she said or to the sergeant of arms. I think all that information should come forward and let the American public understand what transpired and let them know the full truth.
Speaker,
We now learn that the University of Penn successfully lobbied the FBI to drop their China initiative, which was an investigation by the FBI into all the reach that China has with our research universities around the United States. Even the most liberal university presidents will tell you they're concerned that China has infiltrated all of our universities with spies who are stealing our intellectual property, who are stealing all of our research, development, and technology and things like that.
Chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, with me over the weekend on Fox Business, Marie Bartiromo's Wall Street, after months of my question as to why this administration dropped the so-called China initiative. Well, now we know. It was because of pressure from the University of Pennsylvania after Penn received $50 million plus from Communist China. Partly used that money to fund an office for Joe Biden. And it was in that very office that classified documents were found, part of several batches of classified documents in Biden's possession. Now the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, has launched his first investigation out of the judiciary into President Biden's and the DOJ's handling of this situation over classified documents. This comes as Chairman Jordan is also leading a new select subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government. Joining me right now is the man himself, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Congressman Jim Jordan. Mr. Chairman, congratulations to you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Well, let's talk about your investigation. What are you looking at in terms of these classified documents? Let's start there.
Well, I think a couple of things jump out, Maria. First is this lack of transparency. Even though the White House says they're being transparent, it's been just the opposite. So they find these documents on November 2nd. We don't learn about it. We, the American people, don't learn about it until January 9th. And that's from a news report. When the White House goes public and tells us about the only thing they talk about are the first batch, the ones found at the Penn Biden Center. They don't tell us about the second batch that were found in the garage in the adjacent room, even though they knew about it at the time. So they can say they're being transparent, but it's anything but. President Trump gets his home raided 91 days before this midterm election. I think those are the two things that stand out. Why we've created this select committee to look into some of this disparate treatment we see in the way the Justice Department operates.
Well, I mean, this is the Department of Justice. And once again, isn't this election interference? I mean, the FBI sat on the Biden laptop right before the election. They pursued FISA warrants before the 2016 election. This is the third election, 2016, 2020, 2022, that we're seeing election interference, is it not?
Yep. Well, I would even say it's more. I mean, you're exactly right. 2016, they spy on Trump's campaign. 2018, it's the Mueller investigation. 2020, they suppressed the Hunter Biden story. 2022, they raid the president's home 91 days before an election, but they don't tell us about Joe Biden's classified document issue that they knew about prior to the election. And now you got the special counsel investigating President Trump and President Biden. Probably impacting the 2024 race potentially. So, I mean, it's election. Maybe the FBI should just stay out of things and let the American people decide who we want representing us in Congress and who we want as commander-in-chief, and not weigh in on all these various elections.
So can you and these committees improve things before 2024? Are you going to be able to get a handle on this?
Step one in stopping this behavior is first exposing it, getting all the truth to the American people. That's why Speaker McCarthy has established this select committee to look at what we've termed as the weaponization of government. I mean, you can just go down the list. The very first whistleblower who came to us and told us about the Justice Department going after moms and dads showing up at school board meetings. And that whistleblower, FBI agent whistleblower, told us, he said, he used this line about the highest levels of the FBI. He said it's rotted at its core. And then we've had the different treatment, the double standard, where January 6th defendants get treated one way, and then the rioters and looters of the summer of 2020 get treated in a different fashion, it looks like. Then you have how pro-life activists are treated versus the pro-abortion activists protesting at Supreme Court justices' home this past spring and summer. Then you look at the FISA abuses, and of course the one you were just talking about, which is maybe the most alarming, The idea that our government is paying big tech companies to give them information about American citizens and working this collusion between big tech and big government to keep information from the American people. And as we know, in 2020, important information about the Hunter Biden story just days and weeks before that most important election we have, election for president of the United States. So those are the things we're going to examine in this select committee and make sure the truth is out there for the American people.
Well, what do you want to say to these companies that are getting bullied by the FBI and the DOJ to give up all of this information? I mean, can the FBI just go to Twitter and say, what is the geolocation? Who's the user? Where do they live? Who are they talking to? Are they supposed to just give it up? What about AT&T? What have they given up? What about all these other companies? Can they just get bullied and roll over for the FBI, which seems to be what they've been doing?
There's supposed to be a warrant. It's called the United States Constitution. It's called due process. It's called respecting liberty and freedom. So there's supposed to be a warrant if you're going to go get that kind of information. This is one of the issues that some of these FBI agent whistleblowers have talked to us about, this idea that they're handing stuff over without proper predicate, without a warrant. That is what is so alarming. And the idea that they were paying them, as you pointed out, $3.5 million that the government, the FBI, is paying Twitter to get this information and do these searches and do the things that they were doing is truly frightening. I actually think there's a template that's used by the left. The left will say the lie, big media will report it, big tech will amplify it. Then when you try to tell the truth, you get attacked, you get called all kinds of names. That's how it operates.
Yeah.
But then when the government weighs in, that's when it's a direct violation, I think, of Americans' First Amendment free speech rights. That's the thing we're most concerned about, is the government weighing in on this and influencing that process, that template that's used by the left. That's when it gets particularly scary. And again, that's the motivation for having this committee, so that we can expose all this and make sure it stops and doesn't happen in this great country.
Real quick, we got to jump, but it feels to me that you have two issues here that you got to get through. Number one, you got to get those whistleblowers to come out and testify under oath. Will you be able to do it? And number two, what about all of this revolving door of government going to social media? Jim Baker was the general counsel at the FBI, and then he becomes the number 2 general counsel at Twitter. And that's just one example. So how do you got to break that?
Yeah, we're first on the whistleblower question. We've now had 19 whistleblowers come talk to us. FBI agents take whistleblower status, come talk to us. What's scary is many of them we think have been retaliated against by the Justice Department. We are working with them. We think many of them are in fact going to be willing to sit for a deposition and willing to be willing to testify in a public hearing. So we're working on that as we speak. The other issue of back and forth, it's so true. I mean, Jim Baker was at the FBI and then of course at Twitter. Very, very concerning what's going on there. We want to get some of these communications. We want to get, for example, the communications between Elvis Chan, the FBI agent who was meeting weekly with the big tech platforms in Silicon Valley. We want to get those communications. We think that'll be real important for this investigation. And
I'm wondering if he's reporting back to the Chinese Communist Party, by the way. I know his parents emigrated here from communist China. Does he have other family that the CCP is bullying unless he gives them information? This story is so big. Jim Jordan, thanks very much. We'll be watching your leadership.
Well, Maria sounds a bit excited there. She called it right out about a possibility of the investigator's family being bullied by the communist Chinese. Well, let's unfold. There was a lot in there. Devin Nunes came right out and called out how the investigators signed on to the Russian collusion hoax. Now, he should know. He had the evidence. He presented they called it the Nunes memo to expose it all. And he was viciously attacked through social media, by the Democrats, through the government. He took a lot of abuse. It probably helped him try to leave Congress and take a job at Truth Social, because it was just extreme. I mean, you can't believe that no one even wanted to listen to what he had to say while they're making these outrageous accusations against him, the president at the time, Trump. And now we go back to, let's go back to look at what Speaker McCarthy had to say. about, the chairman and how he's going to release all the video. That was quite the statement there. He doesn't even know what's in it. Well, we don't know what's in it either, but I'm sure it's not hard to figure out as you look at the evidence and the shows that they're putting on. They're giving everybody these great medals, and Pelosi's up there. Oh, the Capitol Police. Well, I don't think very much of the Capitol Police, and they got federal investigative powers now to go through the country. I don't think very much of them at all, because they can't be honest. There can't be anything good in there, because if everybody was actually decent in there, they'd be calling this out. So we're going to take a look at what these whistleblowers are coming out. And once again, 50 million plus was going to U.Penn. That was again brought up in that segment. That's where the Obama classified documents were being stored by Joe Biden. Who, what did he do, steal them? Did he really steal them? Or was it set up? We don't know. But if they can put the pressure on them, and they will do everything they can to keep the pressure from going on these people. Because you could start seeing the Obamas and the Bidens going at each other. Like I've always said, evil destroys itself. Because someone always wants to be the top dog of the evil doers. They may start throwing accusations back and forth that if we can get some honest people in government, and it sounds like we have a few in the House now, to expose it all, then you can't hide it, what they're doing. Because the DOJ, look at the game they just played with the documents. First batch, they announced that's out there. At the same time, they already knew about a second batch. They're not doing it. They withhold it. Whistleblower is going to be a key element. Whistleblower stated upper echelon of the FBI and these intelligence agencies are rotten to the core. Can they get them to testify? That's going to be the key. Or will they try to silence them? And we get our government, and then we'll hear more from that in our next segment. We played a clip with Matt Taibbi about how they paid millions to silence the truth and allow the propaganda to be pushed. That all goes back to the Obama administration and the reorganization and modernization of the Smith-Mundt Act. You covered that in shows, go back. All the videos are up on Rumble for you. Rumble doesn't censor you, and we've got all our videos up there right now. You can find out more on that. So, warrants to track us. Marie got pretty excited when she got to that. See, it all comes down to this again. Like I said, every show, we keep showing you this. U.S. Constitution. You have a right to a reasonable amount of privacy. They're trying every way to get around it, and they're doing everything they can to get around it. Holding those people in prison in Washington for January 6th. Showed you the clip last week on that, how they're still going to go after more. This is a government completely gone rogue. And they're using our tax money. They're using the powers that they give these agencies to come after we the people, because we want answers. Sometimes Jim sounds a bit naive, when he talks about these different things they're going to try to do. What it all comes down to is the Constitution and the elephant in the room, the Patriot Act, secret courts, FISA courts. This is the U.S.A. Secrecy should be limited to very few things. Maybe in wartime and everything else. We the people need to know, which is why Kevin McCarthy, it appears what they did, they held his feet to the fire. He appears to be allowing what's supposed to take place, take place. Would he have done it if they didn't hold his feet to the fire? We'll never know, but that doesn't matter. So here's where we stand at this point. Kind of alarming to me. I don't know about you, but I really like my rights. Used them all my life. Made a good life for me. What about the future? All you people with children out there, grandchildren, if you're remaining silent, you really need to be questioning why you're so silent. We, the people, need to do something here. So, to testify, the intel, something's wrong here. And that should be enough to awaken you. But we're going to try to give you more of awakening in our part 3. So stay tuned.